me as a complete hypocrite. I was sitting in my backyard at 3 a.m., unable to make a simple career decision. My mind was spinning in circles. I tried everything: pros and cons lists, meditation, imagining future scenarios. Nothing worked. I was paralyzed by my own thoughts. Then it struck me. Here I was, measuring every angle in combat to the exact degree, timing techniques to split seconds, documenting what worked, discarding what didn't. I treated my body like a precision instrument, but my mind, I was winging it like an amateur. I went inside and grabbed a notebook. If I could engineer physical responses under pressure, I could engineer mental clarity. But it required the same scientific approach: measurement, documentation, systematic practice. I spent 18 months developing exactly 15 questions, not philosophy, not meditation. Diagnostic tools that forced my mind to operate with the same precision I demanded from my fighting. I tested each question in real situations. I documented which ones produced actual clarity versus which ones just made me feel better. I refined the timing, the sequence, the specific wording. These 15 questions became my mental laboratory. They're documented in my personal journals, the exact methodology I use daily to maintain clarity, regardless of pressure or confusion. What I'm about to share isn't theory or inspiration. These are the specific questions, the precise timing, and the systematic practice that transformed how I made every decision in my life. Let me show you exactly how it works. The first discovery was this: your morning mental state determines everything that follows. I used to roll out of bed and immediately react to whatever demanded attention. Phone calls, schedules, problems that seemed urgent. I was letting external circumstances set my internal direction before I'd even chosen my own mental state. Complete amateur approach. I changed this with 3 specific questions, asked in exact sequence before engaging with anything external. These weren't casual thoughts. They were diagnostic tools applied with scientific precision. Question 1. What is my actual energy level right now, stripped of what I think it should be? This question saved me from countless poor decisions. Most people lie to themselves about their energy state. They think they should feel energetic, so they pretend they do, or they assume they're tired because it's Monday. I remember one morning in 1971, I was scheduled to choreograph a complex fight sequence for Fist of Fury. I felt sluggish, but told myself I was fine. Then I applied the question. Brutal honesty revealed I was operating at maybe 60% capacity, physically tired, mentally scattered. Instead of pushing through and creating mediocre work, I rescheduled the choreography session and used that day for lighter technical work. The next day, at full capacity, I created what became one of the most memorable fight sequences in the film. Question 2. What is the single most important outcome I need to create today? Notice, outcome, not task, not activity, outcome. This question literally saved Enter the Dragon. During production, I was drowning in dozens of demands: script revisions, costume fittings, media interviews, studio meetings. Every item felt urgent. I asked the question. The answer was clear: establish the philosophical foundation for my character that would make this film different from every other martial arts movie. Everything else was secondary. I cancelled everything non-essential and spent the day working with the writers on scenes that would demonstrate martial arts as a way of thinking, not just fighting. Those scenes became the core of what made the film transcend the genre. Question 3. What assumptions am I carrying into today that I haven't examined? This question nearly saved my marriage with Linda. One morning, I was furious because she hadn't prepared breakfast the way I expected. I was assuming she should automatically know my preferences, assuming her priorities should match mine, assuming she was being thoughtless. The question forced me to examine these assumptions. I realized I had never actually communicated my preferences clearly. I was expecting her to read my mind, then getting angry when she failed. I chose to discard those assumptions and simply communicate directly. The entire conflict disappeared. These 3 questions, applied every morning with the same precision I applied to physical training, created a proactive mental state instead of a reactive one. They established conscious direction before external circumstances could hijack my attention. But mornings are just the beginning. Mental clarity requires constant maintenance throughout the day. Here's what I discovered. Mental clarity doesn't maintain itself. By midday, even with perfect morning preparation, mental fog creeps in. Your mind starts operating on autopilot. You think you're being productive, but you're actually drifting. Most people never notice this drift. They sleepwalk through afternoons, making decisions from habit instead of consciousness. By evening, they wonder where their day went. I refused to accept this. I developed 3 midday questions to recalibrate mental clarity when it started degrading. Question 4. Where am I operating from habit rather than conscious choice? This question caught me doing something embarrassing. I was training one afternoon, going through my usual routine, warming up, heavy bag work, speed drills. I felt productive, focused. Then I asked the question. Brutal examination revealed I was repeating the exact same training sequence I'd used for months. Same combinations, same timing, same intensity patterns. I was practicing, but not improving. My body was going through motions while my mind was elsewhere. I was reinforcing existing patterns instead of developing new capabilities. I immediately stopped and redesigned the entire session. Instead of automatic repetition, I focused on one specific weakness, my left hook timing under pressure. That conscious adjustment led to a breakthrough that improved my fighting for years. Question 5. What information am I avoiding or dismissing that I need to acknowledge? This one was painful but necessary. During filming of Way of the Dragon, I was getting feedback from the crew that my dramatic scenes felt stiff compared to my fight scenes. I was dismissing this as ignorance. They didn't understand my acting approach. The midday question forced me to examine what I was avoiding. The truth was, I was uncomfortable with dramatic acting and covering that discomfort with arrogance. The feedback was accurate and valuable. I spent the next 3 weeks working intensively with an acting coach. The improvement was immediate and measurable, but I almost missed that opportunity because I was unconsciously filtering out information that challenged my ego. Question 6. Where am I expending energy without creating value? This question revealed I was wasting 3 hours every day. I tracked my energy expenditure for a week and discovered something shocking. I was spending hours worrying about critics' opinions of my films, rehearsing arguments with people who weren't even present, and planning responses to hypothetical future problems. Pure energy waste. No value created, no problem solved, no progress made. I redirected that energy into script development and technique refinement. 3 extra hours of productive focus daily. Within months, the results were obvious in both my fighting and my filmmaking. These midday questions became my course corrections. They caught mental drift before it sabotaged entire afternoons. They forced conscious examination when autopilot tried to take over. But the day isn't over until you extract the lessons. Evening brought the most important questions of all. Most people repeat the same day 1,000 times and call it a life. They experience events but extract no learning. They make the same mistakes repeatedly because they never examine what created those mistakes. I discovered that evening reflection separated mere experience from actual development. 3 specific questions transformed daily events into practical wisdom. Question 7. What did I learn about myself today that I didn't know yesterday? This question caught me off guard one evening in 1972. I was reflecting on a sparring session with a student who had frustrated me with his slow progress. I'd become impatient, raised my voice, made him more nervous. Standard bad teaching moment. But the question forced deeper examination. I realized my impatience wasn't about his slow learning. It was about my own insecurity. I was afraid that his struggle reflected poorly on my teaching ability. My ego was creating the problem I was blaming on him. That insight changed how I taught. Instead of covering my insecurity with impatience, I learned to separate my self-worth from my students' immediate progress. My teaching improved dramatically because I was no longer fighting my own ego while trying to help them. Question 8. Where did my actions align or misalign with my stated values? This question exposed an uncomfortable truth about my early Hollywood years. I preached martial arts as a philosophy of authentic self-expression, yet I was accepting roles that reduced martial arts to mindless violence for entertainment. I was compromising my deepest principles for career advancement. The evening reflection forced me to acknowledge this contradiction. I was becoming exactly what I criticized, someone who used martial arts for shallow purposes instead of deeper development. This realization led to my insistence on creative control in Enter the Dragon. I refused to make another film that contradicted my values about what martial arts represented. That decision defined the rest of my career. Question 9. What would I do differently if I faced similar circumstances again? This question created the most practical improvements in my daily behavior. After a particularly frustrating day dealing with studio executives, I reflected on why the meetings had gone poorly. I realized I was trying to convince them through philosophical arguments when they only understood commercial language. My specific behavioral change: translate every artistic vision into business terms before presenting it. Instead of talking about authentic expression, I would talk about unique market positioning. Same concept, different language. This adjustment revolutionized my Hollywood negotiations. I got the creative freedom I wanted because I learned to speak in terms they valued. The content of my vision never changed, but my communication strategy became far more effective. These evening questions transformed experiences into wisdom. They prevented me from repeating the same mistakes and ensured that every day contributed to my development rather than just consuming my time. But what about when clarity disappears completely, when you're in the middle of confusion and can't think straight? That's when you need emergency protocols. Sometimes clarity disappears completely. You're in the middle of a high-pressure situation, confused, paralyzed, making everything worse with overthinking. That's when you need emergency protocols. I was on set during Game of Death, facing a crisis that threatened to shut down production. The insurance company was questioning my ability to continue after my back injury. Studio executives were arguing about contract terms. My agent was pushing one direction. Linda was advising another. I had maybe 2 hours to make a decision that would determine my entire career trajectory. My mind was spinning in circles. That's when I deployed the emergency questions. Question 10. What am I making more complicated than it needs to be? I stepped back and examined my thinking. I was trying to solve 5 different problems simultaneously: insurance concerns, studio politics, contract negotiations, family security, and artistic integrity. The question revealed the truth. This was actually one simple decision. Do I want to continue making films or not? Everything else was just implementation details. Once I separated the core decision from the surrounding complexity, the path became obvious. Yes, I wanted to continue. The insurance and contract issues were just problems to solve, not life-defining dilemmas. Question 11. What am I pretending not to know? This one was painful but necessary. I was pretending not to know that my back injury was more serious than I was admitting publicly. I was pretending not to know that the studio saw me as a financial risk. I was pretending not to know that I needed to prove my physical capability before anyone would invest in me again. Acknowledging these truths hurt, but it clarified my strategy. Instead of fighting these realities, I could work with them. I would create a demonstration that proved my physical readiness and address the insurance concerns directly. Question 12. If I had complete confidence in my ability to handle any consequences, what would I do? This question changed everything. Fear was disguising itself as prudence. I was avoiding the bold choice because I was scared of potential failure, not because it was the wrong decision. If I knew I could handle any outcome, I would create my own production company and make films exactly as I envisioned them. No studio compromises, no insurance company limitations, no external approval needed. That realization led to the formation of Concord Production and complete creative control over my final films. The weekly questions, 13 through 15, served as pattern recognition tools. Every Sunday, I would examine recurring themes in my thinking, identify where external pressures were overriding my principles, and ask what questions I wasn't asking that would improve my decision-making process. These weren't casual reflections. I documented patterns, tracked improvements, measured results. This wasn't philosophy, it was engineering, mental engineering with the same precision I applied to physical combat. Before this practice, I was reactive. External circumstances controlled my internal state. I made decisions from emotion, repeated the same mistakes, and wondered why progress was so difficult. After 18 months of systematic daily inquiry, I became proactive. I maintained clarity under any pressure. I extracted lessons from every experience. I made decisions from consciousness, not impulse. The compound effect is this: small daily improvements in mental clarity create massive changes in life trajectory. Better decisions compound, clearer thinking compounds, conscious responses instead of reactive patterns compound. Over months and years, this creates a completely different existence. My friend, here is your challenge. Choose one question from what I've shared. Ask it every day for 1 week. Document what you discover. Measure the results. Don't try to implement all 15 questions immediately. Master one first. Let it prove itself in your daily experience. Then add the next. Start with question 1. What is my actual energy level right now, stripped of what I think it should be? Ask it every morning for 7 days. Note what you discover about yourself. Mental clarity is the foundation for everything else you want to achieve. Without it, you're building on shifting sand. With it, you become unstoppable. The choice is yours. The tools are proven. The only question remaining is, will you use them?